My name is Monique Ryan. I'm the federal member for the seat of Kooyong. So this is going to be a fantastic session. It's about practical expert tips and some real life stories about electrification. All of us are on our electrification journey in some way, shape or form. And I think we all love talking about it. I know my husband loves nothing more than talking about his electrification journey at some length. But we won't go there. Firstly, let me just talk about, thank our gold sponsors, City Power and Solar Victoria, and the session sponsor for this particular session, which is Specialised Solar. So we have about an hour for this session. I'm going to introduce each of our three speakers individually. They'll have a little spiel for you, and about five or 6 minutes each. And then we will have a Q&A session, which I think will be really informative. So our first speaker in this session is Sarah Aubrey, who is one of Australia's leading electrification advocates. I follow Sarah's social media very closely. I think the ability to demystify and explain things like clean energy and electrification with humour and clarity is a great thing in a time where many people struggle to communicate effectively, and Sarah's certainly been able to do that. She's been able to engage an Instagram following of almost 70,000 followers, spreading the clean energy message in recent years, and it's been very instrumental and informative for all of us. And so we'll start with Sarah, and then we'll come back to some other speakers in a few minutes' time. Thanks, Sarah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my TED Talk. So I have one slide for you. If we can have that slide, Ben, that would be awesome. And I'm going to leave that there, and you can be looking at that going, what the hell is she talking about? In October 2022, I got my house assessed by a residential scorecard assessor, and it was 2.9 stars out of 10. The average Australian home is only 3 stars out of 10. And over the next 2 to 3 months, I set about upon what only can be described as a matrix-style upload of information and research, and actually transform my house. And in February, I got the house reassessed, because I was like, I'm not living with 2.9 stars, and the house came in at 10 stars out of 10. So it is possible. I will preface that I do live in Sydney, and that is much easier to achieve in Sydney than it is in Melbourne. So I'll just start there. But basically, Federation house, double brick, slate roof, wooden floors, tiny bit of blow-in insulation in our roof. It was very patchy, missing in places. We had a gas stove, gas instantaneous hot water. We had an unflued gas heater in our lounge room, and I'm amazed that we didn't cark it just from that alone. I've got very sleepy in winter. And then we also had a ducted reverse cycle air conditioner throughout the house, which was 15 years old and very much at the end of its life. I mean, the hallway was really warm. It was about the only part of the house that was really warm. So we'd had it repaired a couple of times, and it was time for that to go. So that's kind of how the house was sitting. And we'd done things like replace, downlights with LED lights and a few bits and bobs, but I thought, no, this is the time. So we took out the ducted air. We patched up those holes in the floors. We put in underfloor insulation on rolls, stapled in at 10 centimetre intervals, polyester bats, and then we topped up our roof insulation, which was just blow-in, but we left that till last. And we put in an induction stove, we put in a hot water heat pump, a reclaimed pump, and what else did we do? We did a few other bits and bobs. Put in a ceiling fan. The ceiling fan in our bedroom is actually my favourite thing that I put into the house. It's just so unbelievably cheap to run, like it costs virtually nothing. And it's just so lovely and quiet. It's completely silent in summer. It's just so nice. And we put in energy efficient wall splits. Reverse cycle. I did do a spreadsheet, I'm not going to lie, because all the information is on different websites, so I just decided to put a spreadsheet together, put in those, and then so you just heat and cool the rooms that you're in. So now, I'm sure that wasn't 5 minutes, this is the chart of my house. This is my energy usage. So this, right up here, this is 2022, all right? This is winter in 2022. 2 people living in a house, we were using 42 kilowatt hours a day with a gas bill on top of that. Shocking. I mean, that was before, electricity got more expensive and gas got more expensive. So we would spend about $900 a year just straight away on gas. So that's gone now, immediate saving. And gas has gotten, 20, 30% more expensive, if not more so. So we're probably saving $1,200 straight off the mark. Here is where we added solar, ripped out all the gas things. And so our solar array is not very big. It's 4.6 kilowatt, system. And this is this winter in 2023. This is on average 12 kilowatt hours a day that we're purchasing from the grid. So pretty much a quarter of the electricity, even though we've fully electrified the house and gotten off gas, we're now essentially buying a quarter of the electricity that we used to. And this winter, obviously, was a little bit colder, and you think, oh, it's probably a lot higher. I think we averaged about 14 kilowatt hours a day. And remember, I'm home all day. If we were out at work, it would be even less than that. But I've got to keep my little dog warm. Keep Bindi warm is very important. There's 4 minutes. So that's my story of electrification. And I'm not an expert. I'm just someone who's done it. So please, if you have any questions afterwards, please feel free to ask. And I'm getting off the stage. OK.
Thanks, Sarah. That was extremely brief. I'm very impressed. I'm used to windbags in Canberra, so people who actually obey their brief, it's a wonderful thing to see. Thank you. Brendan Lang is our next speaker. Brendan is a local electrician, and he is the founder of Get Off Gas, which is a small business with a passion for electrification and for educating tradespeople in providing high-quality advice and installations. Brendan has more than 15 years' experience as an electrician, and he's here to promote the transition to efficient, all-electric homes powered by renewables. Thanks, Brendan.
It's not really fair. I tried to get the order changed so that Tim had to follow the career entertainer and voiceover actor. The electrician, who's much better suited behind a set of pliers, I'll take up the challenge, see how I go. I'd like to reinforce what Minister Ryan said and welcome you all to the Wurundjeri country, Aboriginal lands, and I recognise that we are on unceded lands, and I pay my respects to the elders past and present. Yes, I am a local Sparky. I've been working in this area. I moved to Melbourne 11 years ago, and I've done a lot of work in the inner east and the inner north. I'm a Yarra resident myself. Don't hold that against me. I am still a Hawks supporter, so go the mighty Hawks. I'm passionate about everyone getting off gas, and I'm really fortunate that my skill set has crossed over perfectly with my passion for the environment. I'm a keen hiker and bird watcher and outdoor sort of person, so I want to see that last for a long time to come. I grew up on the Great Barrier Reef up in North Queensland, and even in my short lifespan so far, I've seen the degradation of the reef, and I really want that to be around for the children that my partner and I are yet to have. So I'm keen to ensure that everyone's getting really good advice when they go through this electrification journey. It's difficult for tradies to understand all of these little nuances, the different technologies, how the rebates apply in different circumstances. So I think it's really up to the electricians and the other trades who are going to be involved, plumbers and air conditioning contractors, to be the heroes of this transition. So we need to focus on upskilling those tradies so that when you give them a call, you might have been working with that electrician for 10, 15 years. When you call them, you want them to have the best skills and the best advice to suit your solution and your situation, instead of them just saying, oh, sorry, I've never installed a heat pump before, I don't know what you're talking about, and they move you on. At Get Off Gas are really passionate about education, both of homeowners and of tradies, so we're trying to lift that standard so that it's not the 1% who know how to give good advice, but the majority of the workforce. There's a little graph here showing the number of jobs. This was performed by Monash University last year, this study. The number of jobs in each state that are going to be generated by the electrification transition that we're all on. Electrifying heating is a really big part of it, and you can see Victoria is the dominant representation on the graph. So a lot of energy needs to be focused on ensuring that our electricians and other tradies are giving great advice so that we get great outcomes. That leads me on to how you embark on a successful electrification journey. The first thing to do is get your house assessed. An electrician can come in, have a look at your electrical switchboard, work out your capacity, whether it's physical or electrical capacity, to fit all those extra little circuit breakers into your switchboard. Then understand what you've got. Go through your home with your iPad or your notepad and write down what your gas heating is, roughly how old it is. Sometimes there's a little sticker on there that says the year of manufacturing, what the maintenance is that needs to be done. Then you can come up with a plan to change those appliances over the lifespan of those appliances. Hot water is a really big one. When your hot water system dies, you've got to be reactive and change that over straight away. So it's really easy to put a new gas one in because the plumber's driving past, he's got one on the back of his truck. If you can do the planning ahead of time and get your quote for your heat pumps, work out who your suppliers are, what rebates you're eligible for, it's a really good step for the day that hot water system goes. Even better, do it preemptively, swap it over, and you know that you're not going to be in that situation trying to make quick decisions when there's sort of thousands of dollars at play. Number 4, you want to find good tradespeople. You might know some of them already. Push them to get into this space and start to understand the technology and the advice they need to be giving. Keep talking to tradies until you find guys and girls who come to your house and have a look at what you've got. They don't just do it over the phone. They don't do it off a satellite image. They show up. They're a real person. They're invested in your transition. And lastly, you want to use as best quality products as you can so you don't have those sort of headaches down the track. So investing once in a good quality product is better than jumping too early and trying to save a few bob at the start. We need to make sure that we're not leaving behind the other cohort in this transition, and that is primarily renters who don't have autonomy and control of their energy outputting appliances in the house. So a couple of little tips here for any renters who are in the room. I'm sure a lot of you have got children who are renting. They need to negotiate these things with their landlords down the bottom here. An energy efficient home, there's been studies done by Domain that show that energy efficient homes sell for 10% more than their non-efficient compatriots in the market. So if that doesn't speak to the hip pocket of a landlord, nothing will. So that's a good thing to start the conversation. You could do a bit of research, get some quotes, and you've actually got something to take to your landlord or your agent when you want to talk about it. Using electric throws, follow along My Efficient Electric Home. There's lots of good tips like that. The Fix-It Chicks on Instagram are great. Lots of little tips for renters, how you can heat and cool your home for a more cost-effective solution. And that's me. Tim's next. Thanks.
I just want to point out this is a very energy efficient panel because everyone's really exceeding expectations. So thank you so much, Brendan. Tim Forcey is our next speaker, and many of you will know Tim from his Facebook page and from his book, My Energy Efficient Home. Tim has a long background and experience in this area in energy advice, but also in research, and his expertise is I think, actually probably well known to every person here. He's had previous senior roles with the government and with the University of Melbourne and a number of not-for-profits, but is now very much engaged in helping people electrify their homes and make this transition. So thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Thanks, Monique, for the introduction. And you said I had all these things, but you didn't mention the bit where I migrated to Australia to work in the gas industry, which is what I did in 1994. And my wife and I bought an old weatherboard in Sandringham. We're still there. With BHP, with BHP, I used to get in the helicopters down in Gippsland and fly to the offshore oil and gas fields out there. It was pretty amazing. So there was all this oil, all this gas out there. It was about 59 years ago that they discovered all this oil and this gas in the Bass Strait, and they said, wow, this is amazing. We could run a whole city, we could run a whole state off of all this gas that they discovered. And they said we could run this city and the state off that gas for about 60 years. And they discovered that 59 years ago. So that's why the state energy minister was up here before talking about how we're getting Victoria off gas, because gas is way too expensive these days, too expensive to burn. And if you stay on gas, it's going to be coming from further and further away as the deposits in the Otways and in Bass Strait deplete. If you stay on gas, it'll be coal seam gas coming down the pipelines all the way from Queensland. And if you're familiar with the coal seam gas industry, up in Queensland and parts of New South Wales, they're basically pin-cushioning the whole countryside with 50,000 wells. And it was recently in the news as well that that there's a crowd that's going to be importing gas to Wollongong by ship as well. So, and there's other parties looking at importing gas to Geelong and to Adelaide. So yeah, if you want to stay on gas, you'll be able to find it, but it's going to be very expensive. So these days, I go around telling people how you'd be better off without using gas because it'll cost you less money and you can be safer and healthier and it's not and get off the fossil fuels at home. It was about 9 years ago that I had a temporary casual research gig at the University of Melbourne, and we worked out that you could heat a home with a reverse cycle air conditioner for a third the cost of using gas. And so since then, I've been on a bit of a mission to just let everybody know that. And I know that I go into people's homes all the time that they don't know that. They've not heard the word yet. So people here probably know that you can save money by using your reverse cycle air conditioner for heating, but there's a lot of people out there that still haven't heard. So I think it's up to us to talk to all our friends, our family, et cetera, and try and spread the word. 9 years ago, we published our report out of Melbourne Uni, how you could save hundreds of dollars across the year, maybe $1,000 across the year by not using gas for heating. But we made a mistake. We published that report like on the last day of winter. So there's a bit of a lesson. If you're going to do a report on home heating economics, don't publish it on the last day of winter because the next day, spring, Melbourne weather improves and nobody cares. But my kids said, well, you know, Dad, if you want to continue to spread the word, there's social media. So I got onto Facebook, started a Facebook group, My Efficient Electric Home. It's up to 132,000 members. We've got like 600 new members a week coming into that group. And it's people discussing how to improve their homes in all these ways, not just electrification, but also the insulation, the draft proofing, improving the windows, all that stuff. And it's also probably, since it's a searchable thing, I mean, the Facebook technology is pretty good for that. You can type in whatever brand name of any business or appliance, type in get off gas and see what you find. It comes up at My Efficient Electric Home. So it's probably the world's largest searchable database on this sort of thing that we're talking about today. But not everybody's on Facebook. And then one day, the woman who would become my publisher heard me talking about this on a podcast and said, look, if you put all that in a book, we could produce a book. So this is My Efficient Electric Home Handbook, just published. But this time we were smart enough. When she rang me up last September, I said, okay, we can publish this book, but it's got to come out on the first day of winter instead of the last day of winter this time. So that's what we managed to do. They probably never published a book so quickly. And so here it is, My Efficient Electric Home Handbook. You can find copies out there on the floor. But this has all the things that I've learned from working in industry in years gone by, but also things I've learned in my own home, but then things I've seen people do in 100,000 homes on the Facebook group, and also from my business where I go into people's homes and help them improve. So that's kind of what I'm here to talk about today.
So we're going to have a question and answer session. I'm going to kick it off, but by all means, put your hands up if you have a question for members of the panel. Sarah, we might start with you. What was the hardest thing about working out how to electrify your home, make that transition off gas?
I think the hardest thing was actually working out what order to do things, because, for example, the reason I said I left the blow-in insulation till last is because I knew I was going to have lots of electrical work happening in the roof, and blow-in, it would make trades their job very difficult, but it would just ruin. They'd be digging stuff up and moving it and doing all that stuff. So yeah, I had to kind of consider the order that I was doing stuff. And then it's frustrating because like the draft proofing is probably the cheapest thing you can do bang for your buck, but you really need to get the gas from the inside of the house gone. So your gas stove, you don't want to have a gas stove in the house and then be blocking up all your vents. That's not safe. So yeah, I kind of went, okay, well the gas stove is the first thing I want to do. And we also had to do our exhaust fan, because our exhaust fan was from 1997 and ducted to the top of the cupboard, which was great, serving no purpose. And so, got that ducted to outside, but I did that before I did the stove because I didn't want anyone dropping a hammer or something or a screwdriver onto my lovely glass brand new induction stove, right? So you just got to kind of think. And then as soon as I got the gas out of the house, got rid of the gas heater because it was spring, didn't need to worry about that. We still had the gas hot water, that didn't matter. So then I could do all the draft proofing, and I did that myself mostly. And then I thought, okay, well, let's get rid of the ducted air next, because I can't do the underfloor insulation until we get rid of the ducted air. And at the same time of getting rid of that ducted air, we put in the wall splits. And then got the ceiling fan done, and then I think then the solar was done as well at the same time. And then the very last thing, and it's like when you're painting a wall, you really want to paint the massive part of the wall because that's like the best bit. But actually, you've got to do the cutting in and take your time and do that. And I feel like it's kind of like that. You've got to be patient. You've got to get it all in place, and then you get the roller out, and you do the last bit, and then you get the best results. So then the very last thing I did, despite the fact that it was probably the most effective thing, was the roof insulation.
Fair enough. Thank you. Brendan, you touched on a point that is a sensitive spot for me in that very often I find it really hard to get tradies in at the moment. It's been a real problem for some years now. And people do sort of say, "Oh, send me your specs or send me your pic, I'll provide you a quote over the phone," without actually wanting to come out to your house and help you with that, which I always find a little bit nervous-making because, you always think, well, there could be unintended consequences or things that you've missed or you're giving bad advice. What's your advice to people who are struggling to find tradies at this point in time?
Yeah, so use your existing networks. So speak to your neighbours, look down the street, you'll see a heat pump sitting beside someone's house or some solar panels, ask them who they used, if they were happy with the install, the whole communication process, if they were walked through the rebates, did they trust the tradies who came through? So speak to people who you work with or in your neighbourhood. There's, like Electrify Boroondara, there's other similar community groups like Electrify Yarra, who are great sort of information hubs, and they're developing lists of trusted tradies in the area, so that's a good place to start. Keep calling around until you find someone who says, yeah, great, I can come out, I'm sorry, I can't be there for 2 weeks, but I will come. I'll put you in the schedule and come out and see you. So make sure you're meeting them face to face. That would be. Can
I also say My Efficient Electric Home was something that I used to find tradies. I put a shout out for an air conditioning installer. I said, roughly what area I lived in, and that's how I found. And it was fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah. So people gave you suggestions on that Facebook page?
That's a big way to find tradies is on
it's a great database. Yep, and you can see, once you type in their name, like Tim said, you can see all of the other conversations that they've had with people and get a bit of a gauge of what areas they work in and gives you a good starting list to go off. If they're engaging on a site like My Efficient Electric Home, they obviously care about the industry and the products they're installing. So it's a really good.
But this was someone who'd used someone and went, I've used him, he's great, and I trusted the conversations and the opinion. They would talk about the assessment. People often show photos of what's been installed. What do people think of this? So it's a really great way. It's a community-led way of finding tradies.
Absolutely.
Must be a huge amount of work, Tim, making sure that the site is, you've got CSET, you mentioned you have 600 new people joining the webpage each week. How are you employing people to look after all of that for you and to vet tradespeople and other sorts of people who are engaging with it?
Yeah, but I guess I don't know how much of work it is because I haven't even been an admin for the last couple of years. No, there's 6 admins there that look after things and keep things under control. And some people say, yeah, it is the best thing they've seen on social media. I mean, I suppose I can't wait until the day that the day I don't have to do. That's what they said. I'm just quoting. I probably can't wait until the day that I don't have to be on Facebook anymore. But for the time being, it is a hell of a database there. But no, good credit to the 6 admins that are there looking after things. And look, I think it's kind of an institution now. So you don't have those more routine sort of trolls or whatever you might get some other places. I think a troll might look at it and say, this isn't worth trolling. It's just too big and it's been going on for too long now and is providing such good information.
Oh, they're in there.
They're in there.
They are in there, but if you report it to the admin, they are good at doing something about it, which is good.
Yeah. Good to know. All right, so who's got some questions? Richard.
This is probably a question for Brendan.
Sure.
If you were starting from scratch, would you go with a 3-phase system? If you put the solar and have enough power for instead of electric?
Potentially, it depends on the size of your home. 3-phase is not necessary for an all-electric home. I've got a single-phase 2-storey townhouse, and we've got 4 air conditioners, induction cooking, heat pump, EV charging, 6 kilowatts of solar, and it's perfectly fine. The typical triggers for a 3-phase are the overall size of your home. So if your total home demand is going to exceed what you can get out of single phase, or if you've got a 3-phase appliance already in the house, like an air conditioner, that requires a 3-phase connection. They're sort of the 2 main triggers, but it's definitely not a barrier to being all electric. Having single phase, it's more than suitable. So.
Or if you wanted to charge your electric car, say it was 11 kilowatt AC charging, and you wanted to be able to charge that faster than the standard kind of 7, maybe that.
Yeah, you can get some slightly higher charging speeds out of a 3-phase charger. But single phase is fine. I drive 400 kilometres a week, and I get in my car every morning and it's got 100% of charge, and it feels fantastic. I've got no excuse for being late that I had to stop for fuel, so...
Next question.
Hi. Just a question for Sarah. I think it's really impressive that you were able to raise your home efficiency from the 2.9 rating to the 10. I don't think anyone here really denies that moving to the more energy efficient system is more financially beneficial for you in the long run, but there's also the obvious cost of, installing the energy efficient system in the first place. It's great that you were able to do that for your entire home, but in terms of the upfront cost, you don't really need to state how much it was, but how long will it have taken you to pay off the upfront cost in terms of your energy savings over time?
That would require maths. No idea. So the reason I had that money is, and the reason I don't own an electric car yet, is because I had some money saved for an EV. So I decided I'm not driving nearly as much now. In fact, I've got rid of my car and I just ride an e-bike. We're going to go down. We will get an electric car, but at the moment we don't have one. So I took a chunk of money from that. It is, a lot of people have, and not so much in Victoria, but in Sydney, for example, a lot of people already have wall splits on their walls. So that was an expense. It was quite unusual to have ducted air, I think, in Sydney, potentially. But, think probably every year, bare minimum, we are saving probably about $2,200 just straight right there. So that does start to pay for itself. And it is funny that we look at this stuff which saves us money and potentially even makes us money. When you put in a new kitchen, you don't go, when's that going to pay for itself? When's that Caesar stone benchtop going to pay for itself? And when am I going to get my money back from that? We don't look at those improvements that we do to our homes in that sense, but we hold these things that we do that actually add enormous value to our home, if you were going to sell it. We hold them to this level of, to account that we don't look at other stuff with. And Brendan, actually the Domain research that they did, it's actually 17% value to a house it can add just by doing some of those things to your house, like adding solar and a heat pump, and 12% to an apartment. Now, if you spent even 30 grand on doing that stuff, you could add 100 and something grand to your house. It's just a no-brainer. And then you get to enjoy those savings. And then also, if you sold your house, you could also get those savings. So I think we need to kind of reframe how we look at it. The solar was probably about 5-6 grand. The air conditioning was a big expense. That was about 9 grand. A lot of people don't necessarily have to do that. The blow-in insulation in the roof was about 3.5. Underfloor insulation was about the same. And the heat pump was about 6 grand. So please don't make me add that up. So it's not cheap, absolutely, but I just prioritised it and went, I feel like I felt very passionate, not just about saving money, but about just actually making that house ready for the next 100 years and cleaner and cheaper to live in.
Can I address that one? Just a story about saving money or not wasting money, I guess. The gas industry likes to talk about how expensive it can be to electrify, but I go into a lot of homes and there's already a reverse cycle air conditioner there. So nothing more to buy really to start using that as your cheapest source of heating. But we've kind of demonized the use of air conditioners in Victoria over the years. Oh my God, don't touch it, don't turn it on, it'll cost a lot. And look, in summer, I don't care whether you use it or not, but use it in winter as your cheapest form of heating. The worst story is I was sitting with a young couple and I asked, how are we heating the house? I'm looking at the air conditioner, which isn't doing anything. And they said, well, we're using the ducted gas heating. I said, well, we got this air conditioner here. And they said, yeah, good thing we had the air conditioner because our ducted gas heating died. And we were able to use the air conditioner for a month or so until we could get around to spending $5,000 to get a new gas furnace. And I said, well, the air conditioner's there. You can heat with that for a third the cost. So yeah, you just spent $5,000 on a lump of metal. It can be thoughtfully recycled. I heard today in a previous panel, someone talked about, you don't have to get rid of a perfectly good gas appliance. Well, there no longer are any perfectly good gas appliances because they're all costing you more than some other alternatives or potentially impacting the health in your home as well.
I want to ask you about that, Tim, because I saw that anecdote in your book, but also you said something which was really funny because it had been said in my own home within the preceding 3 days, which is that people often say, oh yes, but the reverse cycle air conditioners, the heat that's blown out of them, it's not as nice as that lovely radiant heat that you get from your ducted oil heating. And you hear a little bit the same when people say, but I love to cook with gas. You know, I'm happy to have an electric oven, but I love to cook with gas on the cooktop. What's your response to those comments?
So the gas cooking, like I might go into a home and the client will say, look, I want to talk about the heating and the insulation, the draft proofing, but we're not going to talk about cooking because I love cooking with gas. And I'll just leave that sit there for an hour and a half or so. We'll talk about the other things, but then I'll come back and say, just by the way, are there any health issues in the household, respiratory, asthma? And the young parents might say, yeah, our 3-year-old was just diagnosed with asthma. And I say, well, I got to tell you that 12% of childhood asthma is linked to gas cooking in the home. So it's something that goes from not being on the priority list for responsible parents ends up being number 1 on the priority.
I will also say that now you're cooking with gas is a slogan, an ad slogan from the 1930s.
Yes.
And it was designed because everyone had electric, and they brought it in to get everyone off electric and put gas. And look at the way that's seeped into our popular culture. Now you're cooking with gas, and we're still using that expression today over 100 years later. It worked, it was pretty good.
Just on the comfort factor of reverse cycle air conditioners versus radiant wall heaters, having a ceiling fan is a great compatriot to a reverse cycle air conditioner because the heat comes up. You turn your ceiling fan just on one, it'll bring all that heat down beautifully. Your air conditioner will ramp off more often. You don't need to have it blowing as much. So the heat and the warmth is much nicer if you're using those two in conjunction.
And also there is a lack of education about those reverse cycle air cons. I did a post about dry mode. Has everyone here heard of dry mode? No? There's a little, well, one person, right?
The tears.
Right? So they're on your air conditioning remote. There's a little box. It's actually raindrops, but they're teardrops, and now I'm never going to live it down. Anyway, it's dry mode. So when it's humid, you put that on, right? Dry mode. It's cheaper to run than cool. It's nicer because cool can be quite cold. I worked it out. I looked at the solar. It's about 1/3 of the cost to use. This post went viral because people were like, oh my God. And a guy at my gym went, I saw that post, and he came back to me a month later and he goes, we saved $60 on our 1-month electricity bill. $60 just putting on dry mode. So we need an education campaign about that stuff as well. Anyway, dry mode, you heard it here. Enjoy saving money.
Love it.
Brendan, as an electrician, what would you advise the audience to look for when they're going out and they're trying to find an electrician to do this stuff? Like questions that you can kind of sort out the sheep from the goats.
Yep. Thanks, David. Full disclosure, David is a wonderful volunteer for Electrify Boroondara and also one of my customers. Thanks for the question. So navigating the tradie network. So My Efficient Electric Home's great. You can get that list of people to call, get them to come to your home. It's really just a bit of intuition and finding the trust where you feel like, okay, this person really means what they're talking about. They're spending the time to explain things to me, make sure I understand and I'm comfortable with what's happening. They've taken the cover off the switchboard and had a look at the cables that are coming in and out. They're not just, whacking one product in front of you and saying, this is what we do, this is what you need, and I've got to get out of here to my next appointment. They're spending the time and making you feel really comfortable. You want to make sure they're licensed. So electrical, plumbing, air conditioning, we're all licensed trades, and you can search the database for those licenses. So if you ask them, can I see your license, or can you tell me your license number, you can kind of vet them before they get there to make sure that they're qualified to do the work, and that extends into solar and battery installations. Heat pumps is a tricky one because it really bridges between plumbing and electrical, and there's a shortage of expert plumbers on heat pumps, and electricians have traditionally not been the initiator of replacing a hot water system. So that's sort of where you need to sort of dance between the two, maybe speak to some plumbers about heat pumps and some electricians. Go down to your local supplier, a wholesaler. You'll see, middies is a really common one that people know. Walk in the front and say, hey, look, I'm looking to get some heat pumps, or get a heat pump or some solar, or put some air conditioners in. Can you connect me with some local tradies? You want to make sure that they're in your area, so they're connected to your community. I was on Smith Street having dinner on Friday night, and a couple of my customers who live in Paran were sitting at the table. I hadn't seen them for a couple of years, so it's really nice to go over and say good day. And that's the kind of accountability that comes with tradies who live and work in that area. I plan on being in business for another 25, 30 years, so I don't want to be dodging and ducking and diving as I go up Lygon Street. So yeah, that's a really important part of it as well. Thanks, David.
And I will also say, sorry, if you try to get someone in, say you want to put in a heat pump, right? And again, it's a fairly complex thing to do. If they try to talk you out of it, move on. Find someone else immediately. It's because they don't want to learn the new trade. They know gas is their thing. You know, if it's a plumber, they're like, no, they break down, or they try to talk you out of it, just move on. Trust yourself, trust the research you do, and move on. Ask advice and find someone different. Don't be afraid to do that.
Thanks very much, guys. And thanks, Tim. It's Ken Parker here. I've worked with you, and I just wanted to ask if you might validate a proposal that I have, which is that just before we invest in the wonderful heat pumps and all the other devices which are so critical to the move, is it really a good idea to first of all try and make your home as efficient as possible, doing those things that I know you do, Tim, and advise people about draft proofing, insulation, all that sort of thing, so that you then know how much energy you really need and you don't put in systems that are going to provide you with more energy than you really need for your home?
You can certainly be worth investing in the draft proofing, in the insulation, in the window treatments, and that's going to make it easier to be more comfortable with any sort of a heating system. So yeah, there was some research published by RMIT recently, and apparently no one had ever done this before, and they showed how you could be uncomfortable with an air conditioner in a room that was really poor because it had single glazed glass and wasn't insulated, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, you can improve your chances of being comfortable with any sort of a heating cooling system if you also pay attention to those other parts of the thermal envelope. I mean, your home is a leaky bucket, and as soon as you try to put some heat in, why, it's going to try to leak out. So certainly getting on top of the draft proofing, et cetera, can be important. I mean, recently we just had some really windy days, and we're sitting in our home, and you know, the air is just perfectly still because there's no drafts in this old weatherboard. You know, 20 years of draft proofing will seal it up. And so that's an important thing to get onto. You'll be more comfortable. But the other thing about being comfortable with an air conditioner, I mean, I spent some time just before at the Ask Me Anything thing with folks that came in. They had hydronic heating. And there's a lot of hydronic heating in this area. And it's like, you know, how do we convert the gas hydronic heating to a heat pump? And I'm like, well, maybe you don't need that. I mean, maybe you can get by with a reverse cycle air conditioner because that'll give you the summer cooling as well. And instead of spending a lot of money on a heat pump hydronic, you could instead spend that money on the draft proofing and on the insulation, et cetera. And then your reverse cycle air conditioner just ticking over can keep you comfortable. So that's the way it is in our house. It's an old weatherboard, but it is insulated and draft proofed. And so with just a reverse cycle air conditioner ticking over, we're comfortable, and the whole house is warm, and the walls are radiating heat to us to keep us comfortable. So you don't feel the need that you have to go sit on top of a hydronic radiator to be comfortable, because the whole house is comfortable.
Our house used to, when you turned off the ducted air, previous to doing any of the increasing the insulation, 20 minutes later, the house would be freezing cold again. Now, the room, just heating one room with the aircon, it stays warm for hours. Like, it's amazing. So it's absolutely critical that your insulation and improving those appliances, they work in tandem. Otherwise, think how hard your air conditioner would have to work if just sitting like in a leaky tent. It would just be really unpleasant, and it would increase your energy bills. So it's very important that the two work together. It's essential.
My name is Paul. What would be cheaper to boil the water? Electric kettle or cooktop in a pot?
The perennial question.
Seriously, my understanding was gas was always cheaper. That's why we used gas. And now what you're telling me is electric is a lot cheaper than gas, which I found it really hard to believe.
Yeah, it is.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, it is much cheaper with electricity. And it's supercharged if you've got solar panels on your roof. So my electric barbecue out there is plugged into a car cooking sausages. The scouts are out there doing that. And when I'm using it at home, cooking a barbecue for my family and friends, and the solar's hitting the panels, I'm cooking that for free. So I've yet to find a way to dig a gas well in my backyard, process that gas to produce as cheaper energy. Solar energy in Australia is the cheapest form of energy anywhere in the world. And you make an all-electric home part of that equation.
Yep.
You're
I have got solar, 8.8. What if I didn't have a solar? Is still electric cheaper?
still more efficient, still much cheaper. If you think about the gas flames leaving the side of the pot and all of that heat escaping,
Lost.
in an induction cooktop, the pot is the heating element. It uses magnetism and there is no heating coil, so there is a lot less loss of heat. And in any energy transfer, it's as Tim will tell you, it's the heat loss along the way that creates the inefficiencies.
Can I give you a fun fact? If you set up a litre of hot water on a gas stove and a litre of hot water on an induction
That
stove...
was my question.
Much faster.
Yep.
Which one's cheaper?
Much fa-
Not cheaper, but also quicker.
Much
The
faster.
gas will take over 4 minutes to heat,
Yep.
and the induction will take about 2.5 minutes. So you're using less energy because there's less time as well.
Yeah. And cooking is your lowest cost energy use
It is.
in the house in any case. So if you think about your heating and cooling, it's running all the time. Your
It's like 40% of your energy
cooking's
bill
on
is
for
cooling.
45 minutes or something like that. It's not a huge demand. So the cost consideration, it's not
Tiny.
worth. It's peanuts. It's not worth considering really in the equation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm interested in finding out some of this new vocabulary. I don't really know what wall splits are.
Oh, I'm so
sound
sorry.
a bit alarming. And I don't understand single phase and three-phase.
Yeah.
If they could be explained, please.
Sorry, wall split is just a reverse cycle aircon, the box on your wall, where the compressor is outside the house and you've got the box there with the aircon button, like with the remote, and you just turn it on. Because it's just different to saying reverse cycle air conditioning, which could be ducted. So it's just a way of differentiating that from ducted to the split system on your wall there. And then within that, you can have boxes linked to just the one, like a multi-split. So there's different types of air conditioners. And three-phase and single-phase you can talk about. There is a very key word, which if you are, I have a lot of people here interested in electrifying their house and doing this stuff. Can I see a show of hands? Is that, okay, great. When I was first looking this stuff up, I was like, how do I find stuff? Like, it was really hard. So My Efficient Electric Home is brilliant, but look up the word energy retrofit and energy assessment. So you can get an energy assessor to come to your house, but retrofit, if you're going to do stuff to an existing home, the word retrofit will really open up a lot of stuff to you because you're going to be doing things to that house rather than it being a new build. So that's in terms of a key word, retrofit.
And without advertising anything, but if you're just starting off and there's a lot of terminology in all of this, which can be a bit confusing, I have to say Tim's book was a fantastic place to start.
Also, follow my Instagram or TikTok, Electrify This. Because if you go right back, I go right through all the things that I've done to my house.
Yeah.
So you can actually just see some of the things that I've done. It's all on title cards. You'll be able to find it really easily.
Yeah, and there is a lot of jargon and little acronyms in this electrification space, so it's hard to grapple with what they all mean. So, yeah,
The
follow along with those
thermal
two.
envelope is just basically talking about the outside of your house, insulation essentially, and wall coverings for window coverings.
Yep. And just briefly on single phase and three phase. So single phase is when you've got one wire heading into your house and you can actually look at the cable on the street. If it's coming in from overhead, you'll see there's one phase and then the neutral, which wraps around it. If you've got three phase, you're going to have 4 wires coming in. So you can actually tell by having a look at the cable coming into your house. And it just depends on how much power your home's using as to whether it's using three phase or single phase.
We only have single phase.
98% are single phase. Yeah.
Would it be true to say, Brendan, that the default is single phase and that people who have three phase have pretty much put that in themselves?
Yeah, that's right. But it is a big misnomer. Often people will think that to electrify they need to go three phase. So the first thing they'll do is get their electrician to do the upgrade, spend $5,000 plus doing it. And it may not be necessary. It's just an assumption that they've made. So
But we
first
did
thing
have
is
to
understand.
upgrade our board. So
Yeah.
that is something, my board was probably older than me. It was like all these things all over. It was terrible. So we actually just spent the money and upgraded our board so that we had more space on it to put more things on. And it just looks so much prettier now. Good.
More comfortable in my ignorance, could we have a brief tutorial on the concept of a heat pump? Second question is, who's the biggest blowhard in Canberra?
Second biggest blowhard.
We all know that, don't we?
I guess I'll try to do the heat pump thing. So out here on the floor, you'll see reference to, or maybe there's even a hot water heat pump out there. And your reverse cycle air conditioner is also a heat pump. What does that mean? Well, your refrigerator is a heat pump. What it uses is a refrigerant system to collect heat from around the food in your refrigerator. And with the refrigerant system, it manages to pump that heat back out into the kitchen. And so they invented refrigeration. And then they said, maybe we could refrigerate a whole room. So they invented summer cooling, where you could use a refrigerant system to collect the heat from a room and pump it outside. So it's not, creating heat. What it's doing, it is shifting it. It is moving it out of the room. And so they invented summer air conditioning. And then they said, well, hang on, we could actually turn that around reverse cycle, and we can actually collect free heat from the environment outside. I don't care if it's only 4 degrees outside, there is still heat in the air. That refrigerant that might be at minus 25 degrees can go outside and collect. And then in the refrigerant system, it gets pumped up to a temperature then hot enough to heat this room or to heat your water in a hot water heat pump. So that's why a hot water heat pump or reverse cycle air conditioner can be 400% efficient. You put in 1 unit of electricity to run the fans and compressors, but with that you can get 4 units of heat coming into your lounge room or coming into your water. So that's how a heat pump works, but my wife says that's too complicated. So instead what you could think about is like, say you're going to go buy a pair of shoes, but instead they give you 4 pair of shoes. So that's what you get with a hot water heat pump or with reverse cycle air conditioner.
And those space heaters, those really wildly expensive little blower heaters, people, whenever I've talked about them, but they're 100% efficient, So for every 1 unit of energy, you get 1, whereas with a heat pump, you get...
Yeah, that's just 1 pair of shoes.
Well, 1 pair of shoes. So wildly efficient.
And then with gas, you buy gas, the first thing you do is set it on fire, half the heat goes up. So there you only get the right shoe.
Yeah, there you go.
I think this is going to have to be our last question, I'm afraid, but the gentleman at the back.
Thanks, Monique. Probably a question for you. I live in the same heritage area as you in Boroondara, and one of the challenges is I'm pretty interested in installing a solar system, but the principal face of my house is facing the street. Yeah. So I can't put in a solar panel because it's in a heritage overlay. So that's a challenge. And I had an energy assessment done using an assessor we found on my efficient electric home. And their comment was they've done a lot of assessment, but in this area, they don't see that many solar panels. So what is, what can be done where, the intersection of local planning rules clashes with, trying to electrify your home? So what can be done about it?
Thank you. Nice, easy one. Okay, so the first thing is, it is true, it's surprising, but it's true and disappointing that the uptake of solar in this part of the world is so low. In fact, there of Boroondara, we think that, clearly we have a community which is very impassioned and in many ways dedicated to action on climate and environment. Uptake of solar is actually one of the lowest in the state. There's probably a number of reasons for that. As you say, heritage overlays are one of them. A second one is that a lot of people don't, sort of wealthy enough probably not to need to worry about it too much, which seems odd, but a lot of people aren't too fussed about the cost of their energy. But the heritage issue is one I've come up against myself. Like all things, it's a balance. Many of us feel very attached to the heritage overlay, which contributes to the value of your home, but also really contributes to the amenity of our neighbourhood. I actually think that the solar panels on the front part of the house are not that much of a problem. It's an ongoing discussion between many residents and council. We're also in a situation where at the moment, you probably know, the state government is looking at zoning laws and residential building codes and in the process of potentially changing them really quite significantly. That's also being interfacing with the action plans for many neighbourhoods in Victoria, including Camberwell Action Plan, where there's a plan for an extra 8,000 homes over the next 10 to 15 years. So there's a lot to unpack there. There's lots of different pressures. I think, we do need, if we're possible, to help people get solar onto their homes. We haven't even touched about the situation for renters and how we need to address that as a community as well. Part of the conversation has to be around heritage over laws, heritage laws and the other things that impact on residential planning, but it's a complicated one. I think basically residents need to be able to talk to local government, need to be able to talk to state government, need to interface appropriately with federal government for all of these things. And you have to work out what really matters to you. And I think for many of us, that transition to electrification and the need to do that is probably one of the most significant things that we're dealing with as a community at the moment. So on that easy question, I'm going to just wrap up this session, and thank you to all of our speakers, to Brendan and to Sarah and to Tim for what I think you'll all agree has been a really informative session. So the next panel in this room is on future trends in energy bills, what's likely to happen to my energy bill in the future. Quick reveal, if you don't transition to electrification, it will increase, almost certainly. So that's going to be in this room at 3 o'clock. Other things which are on at the moment, in the main hall, we've still got the energy assessments, we've still got energy efficiency and sustainable architecture experts, all of the suppliers of solar, batteries, hot water, heating and cooling, and other purveyors of all things relating to household electrification. And in the main hall, we've still got the Ask Me Anything hub out at the front in the room on the left. You can go, if you've got specific questions about any of the things that we've just talked about in the last hour, you can go and have a one-on-one chat with a local resident or an expert in these areas of electrification. And I also invite you to visit the Lighter Footprint stall in the main hall for an energy bill analysis and a chat about how to get a better deal on your household energy costs. Thanks again to the speakers, and thank you for attending this session.